Hello, my friends. Welcome once again to Kardec Radio. Uh, this is Spiritism, a closer look. We do this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Luiz Lima here, hosting the program tonight from Orlando, Florida. And tonight, or on this program, we are going to take a closer look at Coma. Coma is obviously a heavy subject and not yet fully understood from the medical point of view. There are some questions, there are some kind of missing links. However, science has advanced at I would say at a very fast pace when it comes to new findings, new studies, new research. Which is a great thing. Anyhow, we here, right, today, we are not going to be talking too much about the medical aspect because that is not where the focus is for us. We are more concerned about the spirit. So what happens to the soul, the spirit, once the patient is in a coma? So just so we can align our thoughts here. Coma is part of what is called disorders of consciousness, DOC, disorders of consciousness, DOC. And DOC has to do with conditions that impair severely awareness and wakefulness. So it's like you have two things, aware and awake. The person has to be aware and awake to be in its normal state. So if the person is awake but not aware, we call it, we say that the person is in a vegetative state. If the person has none, awake and aware, it is in coma. So we can loosely, I would say, define coma as this state of deep unconsciousness. And in that state, the person cannot be awakened. It does not respond to painful stimuli. The person lacks sleep and wake cycles. And even voluntary movements cannot be initiated. So the person is like, all trapped. So that's what coma is, from a very simple definition so we can get started. And again, we're not going to get too much into the medical aspect of it. Okay, so our focus is the spirit. Once somebody goes in a coma state, what happens? So we are going to look at this from two different angles. The first angle is from the patient point of view. And the second is from the family members, family and friends. So we are going to start with the patient point of view. The first thing that happens is what we call the soul, the disengagement of the soul. It's like the soul disengages. It doesn't, this connection between soul and body doesn't get cut. It's still there, but the soul is loose, per se. It disengages, more or less. The quality of the disengagement, meaning how much the spirit dives into the spirit world, more or less, the quality of that disengagement has to do with the level of evolution of the spirit. More advanced spirits can go deeper in a disengagement stage. Low order spirits will not. Okay, so if the person goes into a coma because of an accident or a sudden trauma, meaning it wasn't expected. It's not that the person is getting sick and no, it's just a plain accident, a car accident, some sort of sudden trauma. It is more difficult for the spirit to handle that than if it gets to a coma by being ill and it gets worse progressively until it gets to a coma. A sudden trauma or an accident makes it very, very difficult for the spirit, regardless of its level of evolution, to handle it. The difference is spirits that are more advanced will get out of this confusion state faster, much faster than low order spirits that might not be out of the confusion state at all. That would be a difference. Now, regardless of the level of evolution, all these spirits, when the soul disengages, they will be taken to spiritual colonies, or they will have, I would say, in a broader, using a broader term, they will have spiritual assistance. There will be, good, benevolent spirits that will help those who are undergoing the state of coma. Now, for more advanced spirits, when they go into a coma, their perception of the physical presence of family members is stronger. It's easier for them to perceive that there's physical presence of a close friend, a family member, and it's different for low order spirits. Now, this is for once the disengagement takes place, it is an opportunity for regeneration and energetic balance for the spirit. All right? It's an opportunity to understand the need for forgiveness, especially those low order spirits. Because you see, what happens is once this happens, once the coma takes place, there is this lack of direct communication between the spirit that's now in coma, the person who is now in coma, and the family members, for example. It's much harder to establish, if any, possibilities is existing to communicate. So forgiveness of things that happen before is much more difficult. Now, one interesting point to bring here is the spirits that are in coma, they could be in coma because of their mission. It might sound a little strange, but let me just say this. It is known that all of us are going to be perfect one day. We already know that. What happens, what does it mean? It means that to be perfect, we have to go through every single possibility, everything good and bad. We have to experience everything in this world. So, for example, we need to be born in a male body, in a female body. We need to experience parenthood, loss of kids, all of it. One of the things that we, in order to complete our set of experiences, to make it full, we have to undergo situations like this, where we have someone that we love. It's a loved one. It's one of our close friends, for example, or a family member. But now we cannot get in touch with them. So this has a meaning for the family member. The family member will have to experience that because it is part of the journey towards perfection. Now, for the family member to experience somebody in the family getting into a coma state, some incarnated spirit has to go in a coma state to make it possible for this family member to experience this. Some spirits will volunteer for that. They will come and incarnate with the mission at a certain point, go into a coma, so the family members, close friends left behind, can learn from it. It's a noble, very, noble mission. And it's one of the possibilities. So someone could be in a coma, because of that. It's just their mission. It has been their mission since the incarnation was planned, before landing in a physical body. Another thing to consider is, for low order spirits that go into a coma, this could be related to processes such as obsession, for example, spiritual obsession. So, those enemies, as we say, or the unfriendly spirits, might do everything in their power to make things bad for you, or once you go into a coma state, they will be, bugging that spirit all the time. So that's another thing that could happen. It only happens, though, to low order spirits. Now, for both low order spirits or more advanced spirits, being into a coma makes it possible for a refinement of the perispirit. The perispirit is where our spiritual history is. It carries all of our debts and credits, all of it, in terms of morality and wrongdoings and good things. So because we are living here on earth, we are spirits undergoing trials and expiations. So we have a relatively heavy perispirit, because we have much more debts than credits. And being in coma takes away the focus of having to deal with the physical body, because temporarily the physical body is kind of set aside, forgotten, and the spirits can concentrate on cleaning their spirit, cleaning up their perispirit. I call this refining the perispirit. And also we hear a lot of this. Spirits that are, especially the more advanced ones, they come back and they report peace in general. Very peaceful locations, peaceful situations. All they say is good. Nobody says anything that is not good, because they are assisted all the time by superior spirits. So all of this has to do with the patient who is now in a coma. The spirit disengaged and is going to have its experiences in the spirit world. Now let's look at the situation from another angle, which is family and friends, or those who are here. So we look at that inert body and it doesn't look good. It's not good. So coma, or the impact of coma, goes way, way, way beyond the patient. It affects a lot of people. It affects, it could affect an entire family, an entire group. And the first question, typically, the first question that those family and friends is, why? Why him? Why her? Why now? So, this is very typical. And the question comes up because there's a tremendous sense of powerlessness. We can't do anything. You see, coma is so complicated in terms of having to deal with that. You can take the best doctor ever, somebody who, if it ever existed, somebody who won the Nobel Prize of Medicine for 20 years in a row. You can't do anything with the spirit. So we have to live through the situation with wisdom and logic. What does it mean exactly? Wisdom means I cannot be complaining all the time because it doesn't bring me anything. It's not wise to be doing this. Just creating negative energy and asking why and why and why, and being in a state of revolt. And we have to use logic. We can't question, where is God doing? Why is God doing this? Where is God right now? This is not logical. You see, we cannot determine the course of life of someone else, including that person in a coma. We cannot. That's not up to us. It's just going to generate revolt. The loss of loved ones, which is the case here, right? It is a loss in a way. So the loss of loved ones that go into a coma is more afflicting, more intense than in the case of death. In the case of death, somebody dies, and obviously we're going to be crying, we're going to be, sad for a few days, maybe a few weeks and months. But from day one, we never, ever expect to see that person back with us. Nobody expects that. The expectation is 0%. Now, when somebody goes in a coma, that expectation is no longer 0%, but you have no reference whatsoever. So it's much more afflicting. It brings up more suffering, the intensity of living through it is a lot worse than in the case of a death. Because we don't know, we just don't know, we can't do anything. Every simple thing, attitude, the behavior that we try to do will not make any difference. That's the sense of powerlessness. So it is more afflicting to see someone in a coma than if the person had died. It might seem paradoxical, but it's not. The understanding that we go through trials and expiations right here on earth helps. So for those of us staying here on this side, watching somebody in a coma, a family member, a close friend, if we understand that we are undergoing trials and expiations and we cannot outsource this, helps. I cannot outsource my trials and expiations to somebody else, and that person in a coma cannot outsource his or hers to us. So once we understand this, once we have this clear in our minds, this person is undergoing some sort of trial, some sort of expiation. Okay, I have mine too. So Spiritism shows that. It teaches that with logic and wisdom. That's the beauty of one of the beauties of Spiritism. And Spiritism shows us that spirits can come visit us, including the ones in a coma. They can come out. They can come and visit us as spirits, of course. So we should take an opportunity for, I would say, spiritual re-education. That's an opportunity to stop altogether resentment. It's an opportunity to value life, especially this one. Because 5 minutes ago, that person was okay with you and now it's not. You kind of lost that person. So the life is worth it. That's a great teaching from all of this. Another thing to consider is a person in a coma can, of course, indirectly promote some sort of family reconciliation. In a family, let's just give an example here. three brothers and sisters, three brothers, for example, let's make it simple, three brothers. And one of the parents, let's say the mother, goes into a coma state. However, these three brothers have not talked to each other for, let's say, 30 years. For whatever reason, doesn't even matter. So they've been avoiding each other and not talking to each other for 30 years. They consider that the other two are dead for them. And then the mother goes into in a coma. Now things change because they will be most likely visiting that mother in the hospital. In the hospital room, you're going to find the other two brothers. So they're going to have to kind of come together for the mother. So it promotes family reconciliation in a way. It's also for family and friends, close friends, it's also an exercise of patience. You have to be patient because, the minutes go by, the hours go by, the days go by, sometimes even the months go by, and nothing happens in terms of a physical life, return to physical material life as it was before. Patience becomes a key. So it's a way that we are forced, absolutely forced, to work towards being more patient. Another thing that's very important, a great teaching about love. If you love somebody, let's say you just love somebody, absolutely love, and that somebody does something that you don't like, doesn't matter why, it just did something you don't like, and then you look at that person and say, oh yeah, I don't want to know anything about you anymore, I'm going away, that's it. Then you turn your back and you go away and never talk to that person again. For example, two people in love, they can, I don't want to see you again, that's it, done. When that happens, you do not expect that the person is going to turn back. There is no expectation. However, in a coma state, in a state of coma, you still love the person who is in a coma. You still love. However, you expect absolutely no return. You expect no return from the love that you pour towards that person in a coma. That is a great teaching, to love without the expectation of return, which is different from when you're young and your girlfriend and boyfriend and you expect return. I love you, you don't love me the same way, so I'm going away. That's it, done. Here it's a different situation. It's a different tone within the aspects of love. We will continue to love that person. Love doesn't die. We will continue to love that person. However, there is no expectation of return. And this in itself is a great teaching. Other things that we can consider. Communication. So, talk to the person in a coma, tell them news about the family and close friends, something that person would like to know about. They can still hear us. Take objects that are meaningful to that person. For example, a personal item, a family photo, put behind, close to the bed where they are. Verbalize situations, positive situations, to remind them that, they had a meaning for you. So, oh yeah, remember when we used to do this and that, it was so funny, so good. Keep doing that. That keeps hope up for both. You see, negative words are not going to help any of the two. It's going to make it worse. And dealing with the exhaustion, it's also a challenge for those who stay, who are watching the person in a coma. And obviously, and of course, prayer is also a good thing. A lot of people, a lot of families, what they do is they go as a group, as a family of 6 people, 8 people, 10 people. They go into the patient's room, and do a collective prayer a few times a week, if not every day. That all helps. If the patient is at home, because in a hospital, in general, the environment is clean, there's fresh air, there's light. But if the patient is sent home, after a while, especially if they are in a vegetation state, make sure the environment is clean, there's fresh air and light. You see, in case of death, which is possible for a person in a coma, you just never know. In case of death, we should not behave, our attitude should not be like, don't go, stay with us, don't go, stay. You're making things difficult for the discarnating spirit. It's time to discarnate. If we're going to ask all the time, don't go, stay with us, we're making it difficult for the person to go to the next level, to the next step in their spiritual life. So we have to have resignation. We have to, of course, prayer helps a lot. Like I said, we need to understand that the patient needs to focus on its recovery as a spirit, still in a coma. If we don't do or behave, or our attitude is not resignation, is revolt, it makes things complicated for both. Spirit Emmanuel has a nice phrase. He says, revolt is a synonym of incomprehension. Meaning, if revolt is taking over me, there's something I'm not comprehending, so stop. Revolting is not going to make it better. It's not going to take me out of the situation. Stop, because there's something that I'm not comprehending, I'm not understanding. And the last thing that I want to bring, those are just, thoughts. We could develop this in several hours. The last thing I want to mention is we need to understand the implications of euthanasia. That's something Spiritism makes very clear. We have a program on that in our series here. We have a program about abortion and another one about euthanasia. They're kind of related, but I encourage you to look for those in our channel here. Understanding the implications of euthanasia, takes away part of the suffering. Because if you don't know, if you have no expectation, at one point you start asking, should we stop this once and for all? Should we let it go? What do I do? If you're not clear about what Spiritism teaches, we go back and forth. I should do it today. No, not today. Let's wait a little more. Now, no. We have clear answers from Spiritism on this. So the subject, as I said, so we can wrap up, is a heavy subject. It has, as we saw, we just went some, if you want to consider that we went through a lot of bullets, a lot of ideas, that's it. But each of these ideas we can develop in a deeper way. But that gives you a general overview of what Coma entitles from the point of view of a spirit whose soul has partially disengaged from the body. We're not talking medical here. Thank you very much for being with us on this program. And don't forget, Spiritism, A Closer Look is on Kardec Radio every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So we'll see you next time.